Hello there folks, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, a place where I discuss on different topics about spirituality and introspection. This time it was about the future self, and well, my mother has the most awkward moments of calling me, and the point was we were discussing about something called the future self. Now I presented a bit about the idea of the future and the fact that the future simply doesn't exist and it is about to happen. Okay, there are certain ways that one may predict the future, but a prediction is ultimately, let's say, a calculation, or let's say an opening, okay? Because some people are a bit more open to creation, and with them being more open to creation and different other forces of the universe, they may be indeed more sensitive to different factors of the world. So the point is, they might actually have some hints about what the world may be like. Because even astrology can predict certain things. There is truth in astrology, but ultimately, astrology studies the energies, and the energies and influences of the universe will always impact those who are more unconscious, okay, those who are more ignorant, because those people react and live most impulsively. Energies will always have different influences and different impacts on life as it is. And the more unconscious things are, the more ignorant things are, right? Well, the more they will react to that, right? If you threaten an animal, they will simply fight or flight, right? Always, right? But if people become less ignorant, right? The point is, you cannot simply predict what, conscious, aware people can do, right? Can you guess what a certain person does? Well, depends on how ignorant they are. If they are very ignorant, you have to do a certain thing and you know that they will react in a certain way. Probably not the exact way you've predicted, but you know they will impulsively react in a certain direction, right? If you threaten them, you know they will either fight or flight. So it's not that hard to predict anything, especially to people that are very ignorant. And when it comes to people who are conscious, right, you may try to scare them, but it most likely won't work, right? You may try to predict the next movement they do, but you simply cannot because you don't know, right? People who are very self-aware, they won't simply be moved that easily, and you will always find them very, hard to predict. Now, the point is, the second term that I wanted to discuss is that of the self. Okay, now what is this self? Okay, we've seen that future is kind of an irrelevant term because it regards something that kind of doesn't exist, right? It's just a presumption, and well, a presumption doesn't make you better. If you place your life on presumptions, well, you kind of make your own self as a presumption, right? But isn't the self itself a presumption as well? Well, let's actually find out. So what is the self? Okay, because you always say yourself, right? In English, you always say yourself. But the question is, what is this self? Because apparently it is not you, but it is yours, right? It is just like the clothes. It is your clothes, but, well, they are not you, right? It is your body, right? But it is not you. So ultimately, when you say yourself, it has two words. It has your, which always shows possession, right? But possession doesn't mean having acquired, right? Or being that, right? Just having a certain sense of control. Again, a sense which is a belief, because you believe you have a control over that body, right? The physical body that you believe you have a certain control over it, but you can barely control it, right? The very fact that it is paining and aching, right? It kind of shows that you have a lot of things that you're not taking into account. The very fact that it is not feeling good kind of shows how much you have not been taking it seriously into account, right? So your shows something that you possess, but is definitely not you, right? Your clothes are not you. They are yours. Again, this is a little psychiatry game we all play, because ultimately the way society works is you theoretically own something, because, well, society can at any time come and decide that, hey, do you, as an insignificant citizen that you are, well, you're no longer eligible of owning this thing, right? It's always that, uh, when you as a citizen have to be taken something from you, it's always done legally. But when you want to do something against the regime, you are always reminded that we are, a democracy, and you should keep to your own place and be, a very good puppy. Now, the point about your, as I've said, is it always shows possession. You own something, but that it is definitely not you. Now, the self, again, is, well, nothing else than kind of an accumulation, right? Because if you say your clothes, your this, your that, well, those are basically material accumulations, right? They are accumulations because you buy your computer, you buy your car, you buy your house, so definitely those are like accumulations. The physical body again is kind of an accumulation because at a certain moment it was just two cells, right? Two reproductory cells that united, and well, your being started being formed. And of course it grew broader and broader, and well, through division of the cells you basically became what you are now, right? And in order for that division to happen, those cells actually needed to be fed, right? And for a very long time, they fed themselves from the mother's body, right? The mother's body nurtured the child, right? And when the child was ready, they were simply embarked on a journey that brought them into this world, right? Through the womb of the mother. Now, the point is, with the body to grow, right, it needs food to eat. Now, as it needs food to eat, all the food that you eat is basically an income, right? It is, well, let's call it a genetic uh, imbibement, or let's actually call it an accumulation as well, because technically you accumulate part of the food that you eat, right? A part of it remains in the body and nourishes your body. Well, technically all the food nourishes your body, and the results of that, or the excess of that, is also thrown out, right? So technically your body is also an accumulation. Now, when it comes to the mind, we all know that when you come into this world, you're basically a zero, right? Your mind is null and void. Why? Well, because your mind is blank. You don't know anything, right? You don't know a name, you don't know a race, you don't know anything, right? There have been experiments, right, that have also shown this. A child was given by a scientist two pictures of a white man and of a black man, right? And the child was asked if they see any difference, right? But the child said both people are, both the men are simply smiling. So this kind of goes to show that a lot of the concepts, right, they are simply imbibed into us, right? They are simply brought to our minds by the environment that we live in, right? Black skin, white skin, nationality, gender, all these things, right? They are just part of the mind. The mind will always need concepts, right? Because it needs justifications. The mind is basically a tool of running away from your own self, right? The mind is only an engine of creation. The thoughts that you have are just blueprints that can be used in order to create broader thoughts and aspects and ideas. And the more you create these thoughts, well, the point is that the more you create these thoughts, the more you distract yourself, so technically and ultimately the more ignorant you become. Now, the point is, the self is kind of, again, an accumulation, because if everything that you know comes, and it can only come from an external source, well, isn't the self also an accumulation, right? Because let's think about it. You feel that you are an engineer, but the grammar and the vocabulary that you know for the languages that you know, right? You learned them from an external source. You didn't come into this world knowing them. The job that you work in and the hobbies that you perform based off of information that you have accumulated from an external source, right? You have learned that from other people, or you have learned that from, well, by your own self, let's say, but you've learned them from an external source, from some books, YouTube videos, documentaries, whatever. They are always external sources, right? Because this world places so much attention on the exterior and little to no attention on the interior. Now, at the same point, the idea of emotions, right, and attachments to certain things and meaning, okay, that you attach on certain things, again, it is coming from the exterior, right? Because the meaning is expressed through words, and words are just concepts. The vocabulary is again something that you accumulate from others, right? You hear your parents speak in a certain way, you learn how to speak and how to spell at school, and well, those are just other concepts, right? And sooner or later, you get imbibed with so many of these that you identify yourself with, and well, you believe they are the normal. But again, you believe those. So, well, a belief is nothing else than accepting something without a necessity for proof, right? Now, the proof would be, well, why would you actually need these, right? You only need concepts, right? Just like I do. I only need concepts, like words, to try to make myself understood by others, okay? And, well, if people don't understand me, well, I don't get attached to the outcome, so I just move further. Now, the point is, can you actually handle such things, right? Like living without sounds. Well, you cannot live without sounds, visuals, and basically meanings, okay? Because you see things, you hear things, and you place a meaning on those, right? You already have the meaning set on those, right? It's called recognition, right? Cognition is the moment when you see something or hear something, or let's say your sensors, right? The physical sensors give you a certain thing, right? And that thing is not known. Then you attach some meaning to it, just like we attach, labels of, let's say, scientific names to different species of animals, right? It doesn't change them anyhow. It just gives us a sense of power over this world, right? Because if you call an animal by its theoretical name or by its scientific name, you may feel that you have a certain sense of power, and you also know some features about that. But when you speak the name of something, you usually think about the features, right? You always think about the features, and I've presented this in the video called People Speak of and About the Self, right? Not about the being themselves, right? Because when you speak about a friend of yours, you speak about the properties that you know, right? They have a certain height, they have a certain, let's say, array of abilities and, well, possibilities and specifications, right? A certain eye color, a certain height, these details. And they have certain likes, certain dislikes, certain behaviors and such, and each with your own, conceptual attachment, right? You like certain things about them, you don't like certain things about them, right? So that's a point. You think about all these points, but you fail to see the life within the people, right? Just as like when you speak about yourself, right? You can't speak about your being because the being is a state that transcends the mind, so it doesn't require any meaning, right? But when you speak about who you think you are, you speak about yourself. So an accumulation of thoughts and ideas and emotions, right, that all came from the external, right? Even as a creator, right, when you follow creation, right, when you allow creation to flow through you, right, those ideas are also external. They come from an external source to you because you open yourself up to allow, let's say, so many ideas, right, to flow through you and allow you to create, right, and to burst with creativity. But those are just external aspects as well. So society has this idea of self-development, right? And again, development means creating something from scratch. And why self-development? Well, society will always want you to be ignorant because that's the way it can control you. So you must have a self, and well, self also translates as complacency. Because when you are ignorant, you're also complacent, right? You will seek something to identify yourself with, and that's what society wants, because if you don't know who you are, if you don't know yourself, right, and not the self, if you don't know who you are as a being, let's put it like this, well, you will live in all these ideas of a certain self, right? And now we all have these fake gurus speaking about, new age spirituality, right? And they keep telling you about your future self, and they're using these as a means to hook you into their schemes to make money upon your back, right? Your future self awaits you. Your future self wants to tell you this. Your future self wants to tell you that. Why the heck would you believe in something that doesn't exist? Because, as I've been saying, if you believe in something that doesn't exist, and you believe in a property, or you believe in a thing that belongs to something that hasn't manifested yet, well, that's usually treatable by a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or, well, an exorcist. The point is, believing in things that don't exist are definitely not good for the mind, right? There will be a future self, not there is. The future self doesn't exist, okay? How you will be in several years, you don't know, because you don't know if you'll catch the day, you know, you don't know if you will wake up tomorrow. So stop dreaming and thinking about concepts that really don't serve you, okay? I mean, sure, I'm not obliging anyone, but I'm just telling people ways through which they can simply dispel, well, or at least see how concepts and meaning in their own life are uh, not as helpful as they may have believed. So the point is, they might actually realize that they need less meaning into their minds and they just need more tranquility, which is achieved by simply no longer taking the mind into account that much. All this being said, hopefully this video series made you a bit more introspective. You are appreciated. Take care. Ferenc Board signing out.